recorded. Um, so we have a written Torah that was given to us by God through the word of Hashem. It's funny because I have a friend of mine who's doing a course in Jewish studies versus American Jewish law versus American law in U of H, and he's an attorney, a very prominent attorney here in Houston. And he told me about it that he was doing this. I said, if you need any help, call me 24 hours a day. I'll be there to help you. So he calls me one night, 11:30 at night. And those of you who know me know that I'm not sleeping, unfortunately, at 11:30 at night. That's my morning. Okay, that's at my peak my peak hours. Yeah, peak efficiency. So so he calls me 11:30. He says, Rabbi, you remember you told me that at any time I can call you before the course. He says, I'm actually starting the course tomorrow. I have no idea what I'm going to talk about. He says, I have no idea. He says, because I sat with a bunch of people. I interviewed a bunch of people. And I wrote all my notes. And now I'm putting them all together. And I see that there's no agreement on anything. So I said, sit tight. I'll be by you. I'll be at your house in 10 minutes. So I drive to his house in Meyerland. And at the time he lived in Meyerland. But so I drove to his house. I come there and I see him under a whole bunch of papers. And he says, I don't know what to do. I sat with, several rabbis in our community, right? And without mentioning names or congregations. And each one gave me a different name. He says, I asked them who wrote the Torah. Very simple. Who wrote it? And everyone gave him a different answer. He says, I don't know what to make of it. He says, I interviewed each one separately, and I didn't realize that there was no consistency with what they were saying. He says, now I'm trying to put it together, and I have 3 different people who wrote the Torah. He says, I need you to tell me who wrote the Torah. So I said, you know what? I'll make it easy for you. I said, I want you to tell me who wrote the Torah. I said, I'm going to make believe we're in synagogue now, and I'm going to lift up the Torah. And we sing Vizot HaTorah, right? What? I said, I want you to sing the words to me, or write it down. Vizot HaTorah Asher Samoshe Lifnei Alpi Moshe. Oh. The word of Hashem through the hand of Moses. I said, so who wrote the Torah? The word of Hashem through the hand of Moses. So I don't even need to be the genius to tell you this, right? You're going to... Right. Well, of course God came first. Of course God came first. Right. Right, but Moses was the one who actually put the pen to the paper, right? God told him, "You write, I will you transcribe what I tell you." Right? So we have a clean sheet of paper, right? And God says, "Bereshit." Okay, bara, Elohim, and so on and so forth, and it goes all the way through till the end of the Torah, 5 books of the Torah: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, until the end. It's interesting. There are some things that are written in the Torah that don't make any sense that Moses would ever know about it. Right? You know about Bilam? Bilam, the powerful, very, very powerful prophet of the Gentiles. Very, very powerful prophet. They say he was more powerful, the Midrash says, he was more powerful than Moses. Okay? You know why he was more powerful than Moses? So the nations of the world shouldn't say, well, you know why the Jewish people were so successful? Is because they had a great leader. If you would have given us a powerful prophet like Moses, we would also be great. So God says, you know what? I'll give you an even greater prophet, Bilam. And yeah, that's with the donkey, the one who had the conversation with the donkey, right? So it's unbelievable, right? So he has this. Now, what's going on with Bilam? Balak the king goes over to him and says, I want you to curse these Jewish people. They go on top of a mountain. They overlook the camp of the Jewish people, right? Where's Moses? Moses is down by the camp. You think he knows about it? He doesn't know anything about it. He's sitting there writing the Torah, and the whole story of Balak and Bilam is all transpiring. He's like, what happened?
And he's nowhere near.
He had nothing. He didn't know anything about it. How can Moses know about it? That's number one. Number two, is there are many laws. For example, what is a kosher animal? What is not a kosher animal? And all of the exceptions. For example, there's only one exception. You know, there are two qualifications for an animal to be kosher. It needs to have split hoofs, and it needs to chew its cud. Okay, there's only one exception of an animal that has split hooves but doesn't chew its cud. That's a pig. Now, Moses is no zoologist. Okay, he doesn't know every animal in the world. How can he put definitively in the Torah? And now, 3,300 years later, there still has not been a single animal that has been found that is added to that exception. Not a single animal. Right? So you have an entire Torah. You have 3,300 years later, there's not a single exception that's not written in the Torah. It must be a God-given document. Right? Because Moses, there's no way in the world that he could know this. None. Moses didn't know all the fish. Right? And he's telling you that it must have fins and scales. And if it has fins, it has scales. What? How does he know that? He saw every type of fish. You know anybody here know how many types of different water species there are? Right? Billions. Billions of different types of species. And Moses is telling you definitively in the Torah. No, it's not Moses. God is telling you in the Torah through the hand of Moses. There are things that Moses can't write about because he doesn't know unless God tells him. You know, there were 4 times, the Midrash says, that all of the animals of the world came to one place. We know if you want to see kangaroos, you either go to the zoo, you go to Australia. Right? There are certain animals. You want to see the great elephants, you have to go to Egypt. Right? Or you go to the zoo where they imported one from Egypt. Right? Right? Or you go to Africa. Right? Right. Right. You go. There are certain places you can see certain animals, unless you bring them to a zoo in a cage and then you let them out. Then you sort of give them their environment, their similar environment. Okay, so you have all of these animals. They all come to one place 4 times in the history of mankind. They all descend on one location. The first time was by Adam. Adam had to give them names. To give every animal a name. And we mentioned this in the beginning when we started, that the names of each of the animals were given by their identity. All right? So if you have a dog is all heart. So the name you give to a dog that Adam gave to the dog is Kelev, which is Kol Lev, all heart. It's all heart. Right? You have a cat, which is Chatul, because it's modest, right? It doesn't do its needs in public. It goes to the side. It finds a little corner. It digs a little hole. It does its thing privately. Each animal is given a name that identifies its essence. Right? We can talk about a parpar. We can talk, which is a butterfly. We can talk about all of these beautiful animals. Now, Adam had to understand each animal. So they all came there and they're waiting online. Give me a name. Where's my name? Where's my name tag? I need my name tag, right? Because it's the beginning of all creation. Everyone needs to get an identity. And Adam is spending time with each animal trying to learn the identity of each animal. Oh, I got it. Gives it a name that fits it appropriately. Okay? That is the first time. The second time is Noach and the flood. Right? He has to save all the animals. So what does he do? What does Noach do? He brings them. They all come to one location, and they all join his. They go into the ark. The third time, is when the Jewish people are. So it's an opinion that this third time was when the Egyptians were getting punished, where they had all of the animals come and tear apart their land, right? So that was the third time. And the fourth time, according to some opinions, the third time, was when Moses was teaching the Jewish people about kosher food. When they were sitting in the desert learning about kosher, right, all of the animals came. He says, this is kosher, this is not kosher. This is kosher, this is not kosher. Went through each animal to show them what exactly it means to have a split hoof. What does it mean to chew its cud? And so on and so forth. right? You have, for example, a gamal, right? A camel. A camel chews its cud, but it doesn't have split hooves. That's one of the exceptions the other way, right? You have exceptions of those that have split hooves but not chew their cud. You have exceptions of those that chew their cud but don't have split hooves. But other than those exceptions, there are no other animals that chew their cud or have split hooves, unless they're kosher or they're totally not. All right? It's an incredible. So where does this come from, this wisdom? Where does this knowledge come from? This is all in the Torah, given by God to Moses. In the hand of Moses, we all sang it. Okay, so now, let me ask you a question. What does it actually tell us in the Torah? What does it actually tell us in Torah? It only tells us one idea in the Torah. It tells us what to do. But something that it does not tell us in the Torah is how to do. It says, for example, it says to read Shema in the morning and the evening. Well, it doesn't say when is considered morning. It doesn't say when is considered evening. It says that to slaughter an animal, great, before you eat it, you're not allowed to eat from a living animal. You can't just chop a leg off a living animal and throw it on the grill. You can't do that. Even, by the way, even non-Jews are not allowed to do that. It's one of the seven Noahide laws. You can't take a limb off a living animal and just eat it or grill it. Right? It has to die. It has to be put to death, and then you can eat from it. The reason I'm saying that it's the seven Noahide laws. Last week, we did not have class here, but I had an event. The building was closed, but I had an event at the Torch Center of a group of Noahide people who are not Jewish, mostly former Christians, who don't want to necessarily become Jewish, but they want to be accepted as as Noahides. They want to observe and commit to the 7 laws of Noah. And they are not to eat from a living animal, not to curse God, not to say God's name in vain, to believe in one God, in no deities, to have courts, adultery, not to murder. What's that? Courts, yeah, courts, and judges, yeah, and police force and everything. And what was the last one? No.
I'm sorry, that was 6.
That was 6, and the 7th one is no idols. I think we said no deities, right? And no, that's not part of it. That's not part of it. But okay, so we had this event at the Torch Center where we had 15 Noahides that have, in order for it to actually apply, they have to accept it in front of like a bet din. And we created that bet din of three men who they all stood in front and they declared they also have to denounce any other god. That's part of it. It's significant because it really is a remarkable event where you see people who grew up one way and they've come to realize that there are too many contradictions in whatever religion they grew up with, and it was very beautiful to see people who were just like, and that's the beauty of Judaism, by the way, is that you don't need to be Jewish to be saved. You don't need to be Jewish to get heaven. You don't need to be Jewish, right? You can stay exactly who you are. There are 7 commandments. That's it. And they're, I think, relatively easy. If you want to compare 613 to 7, I think we can. I think 7 will win any day of the week, right? But what are the purpose of this mitzvah? So let's go back. Slaughtering an animal. It says to slaughter an animal before you eat it. But does it say how to? No. Right? If you look at any single mitzvah, it says to put a mezuzah on your door. Right? Does it say what a mezuzah is? No. Just minor detail, just doesn't say it. Right? It says to put on tefillin. It doesn't tell us what tefillin are. It says to put fringes on your 4-cornered garments. It doesn't say what fringes are, what they should be made of. It says it should be blue. Should it all be blue? Should not be like. All of the details are missing. If you look at the Torah and you try to observe any single mitzvah, you're blind. Yep. Because it doesn't tell you how to do it. So how do we know how to do it? How do we know? The only way is to unfold it with the oral Torah. That's what the Talmud is. You know, the first Mishnah that's starting today of the first page of Talmud. So it goes. It was written Mishnah by Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, Rabbi Yehuda the Prince. He wrote all of the Mishnah in 6 different categories, and then the Talmud was written by Ravina and Ravashi. It was compiled, which is, I guess, explanation and an inquiry into the Mishnah. So they're both in the Talmud. If you look at any page of Talmud, you'll see there's always a Mishnah, and then there's the Talmud explaining that Mishnah. And it can go up to 16, even 20 pages on a single word in the Mishnah.
Is that why it takes so long to do the whole Torah? Because there's so many explanations, or
The whole
to
Torah.
read like the celebration that just occurred?
Oh, the Talmud.
Right.
Yes.
Is that why?
Well, because there's a lot of we're filled with a lot of information.
And then, do you have to do this with a partner? or
No,
do
you can do it
it
yourself. You can do. By the way, they have a great resource on your phone if you have WhatsApp. You can even text me and I'll send you this link. But there's the 8-minute daf. Daf means a page of Talmud. It's the 8-minute daf, and this guy, I mean, it is 8 minutes is ridiculous. Okay, it's a little fast for right? But it's a challenge. But if you want to just get like a snippet of what each page of Talmud has, right? It's the 8-minute daf. You subscribe, you add it as a contact in your phone, and then you'll get a daily 8-minute video of the exactly. It's the Cliff Notes. Now, yeah, it doesn't do justice to the Talmud because again, the Talmud is so deep. Now it's very it's amazing. So the first Mishnah starts off like this: From when do we begin saying Shema in the evening? That's the first Mishnah. From when? So it's like me going, Ronnie, when are we going skiing? You're like, what? I didn't know we were going skiing. It's like, did we talk about this? Do we it's like, what? Right? How does this happen? It's like the Mishnah starts off with an assumption right there. Yeah. From when do we begin? It's like, what time are we leaving to the airport for our skiing trip? It's like, what? It's like, right? From when do we begin saying Shema in the evening? So what's that? Okay, so 1 second. So the actual time is from the time that the Kohanim go to eat their food. Well, what time is that? Okay, so now the Talmud, if you see the way the Talmud answers it, is the Talmud is a bunch of lawyers. Think of it as a bunch of lawyers. They're like, that's the first question that the Talmud asks. It's like, what? Who even said you say Shema? Right? Well, you got to bring a source. And everything in the Torah, every single line in the Torah needs to be verified. Okay? There's no line in the Talmud that could be written without a source in the Torah. Anybody who tells you it's just a bunch of rabbis having discussions and making up laws has never learned Talmud. Right? And we have a Talmud class every Friday at the Torch Center at 12 o'clock. And this is exactly the point that we point out every single week. That there's no such thing as the rabbis making up rules. It needs to be sourced. It needs to be verified in the Torah, in a specific verse or word in the Torah. So the Talmud right away attacks the Mishnah and says, what? From when? Who even said you say Shema in the evening? Right? Now, the Shema, as we all know, is the mission statement to the Jewish people. And the Torah tells us, there's a verse in the Torah, right, that you should say it every morning and evening. B'shachbecha, when you lay down, uvkumecha, and when you rise up. It's a mitzvah in the Torah to say Shema twice a day. Every evening when you go to sleep, and every morning. Now, what is sleep time? If I go to sleep, if I work night shift, right? So my sleep time is at 10 in the morning. So is that my sleep time? The Gemara defines it. Again, the Gemara goes and thinks for us and does all that work to investigate and give us the bottom line answer at the end of the day. So we have all this argument going back and forth. One opinion says this, he brings a verse from here. There's another opinion says that, he brings a verse from here. And then it gets to a conclusion. And then the Mishnah moves on. The Talmud moves on. Talks about the next part. Now, Rambam, who lived from 1135 to 1204, Rambam did an amazing work. Rambam went through the entire Torah, the entire Talmud, took all of the conclusions of the Talmud, and then he assembled all of the laws, all of the bottom line laws. Tell me what to do. Right? I have this many times. Like, Rabbi, I don't need the background. I don't care about all the theory and all the... Just tell me what to do. When should I say it? When should I get up? What should I do? Right? And Rambam does that. Rambam organizes it. So if you want to know exactly what it takes to be a Jew and all of the laws, Rambam gives it very, very succinctly, very clearly. It's a pleasure to read the Rambam. Pleasure. And the Rambam organizes the conclusions of all of those arguments in the Talmud. And if you look on any page of Talmud, on the top corners of the pages, there's the sources of where Maimonides, Rambam, where he puts the laws based on that specific page. And then if you look at the Rambam, he'll tell you what source it is in the Talmud. So it's they're cross-referenced. So this is amazing that you have the Rambam giving us conclusion. He tells us, okay, now what do we do? Now, it got even more interesting that the Rambam writes about his own book. He writes that a Jew really only needs his book, because in his book, right, in his book, he has all of Torah, he has all of Mishnah, all of Talmud. He has it all in there. So he says, if you learn my books well, you know everything you need to know as a Jew. The irony is that there are more books of commentary trying to figure out what Rambam meant, right, than any other book in the entire world. There's no book that has more commentary written on it, trying to understand what is written, than the Rambam, right? That's an incredible irony. But you have this incredible book. Now, 200, 300 years later, we have what's known as the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch is the laws of day-to-day that apply today. Meaning, today we don't have a temple. We don't have offerings, right? We don't have sacrifices. We don't have the tithes that we used to bring to the temple. We don't have... All of these laws don't apply today. So what the Shulchan Aruch is bringing it down to today. Okay, today what do we do? We wake up in the morning. Where do we start? What do we do? That's the Shulchan Aruch. And for those of you who want a very, very practical guide, there is a book called Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, which is, like you said, the Cliff Notes of the Shulchan Aruch, right? Which is also an Art Scroll series. I think it's 5 volumes. And it goes through law by law from morning till evening. It will tell you every single thing, exactly how we wash our hands, how do we put on tefillin, how do we light Shabbos candles, how do we observe Shabbat, every single law, exactly. It's called the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. And Art Scroll did a magnificent job translating that as well to give us the full scope of understanding of this book. Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. SHULCHAN Aruch ARUCH. Okay, so this is a little bit of background, a little bit of history, so we can understand what the Talmud is. The Talmud is the elaboration of all of the Torah's teachings, so that we can understand it and it not be a mystery to us when there are verses. And to me, I'll tell you what, one of the things that turned me on in Judaism is that, you grow up, there's verses that are written in the Torah, and you think, okay, that's okay. It's a nice message. When you learn it through the eyes of the Talmud, it's like this huge, orchard that was created out of this single word, sometimes even a single letter. A letter of the Torah, one letter. Why did that letter? And many times the Talmud would ask, why is that letter needed? Why is that letter needed? It's one letter. What's the big deal? Just let it go. No. If it's God's document, he doesn't put anything there. Let's just throw it in extra. Right? No. There's a reason why it's there. I'll give you an example. We know there's a commandment in the 10 Commandments to honor your father and mother. Okay? You're the oldest brother, right? Yes. Okay, you're going to like this one. All right? So it says, honor your father and mother. So it says, kabed et avicha Ve'et imecha. You should honor your father and your mother. Now, in Hebrew, it's very different, but imagine, why does it need to say and? It could just say, honor your father and mother. Sorry. Honor your father. Okay, it doesn't work in English, but in Hebrew, it says, it could say, kabed et avicha ve'imecha. Why ve'et? It's a whole nother word. Why do we need to add that whole extra word? In the Torah, that's significant. Sages tell us, this is, again, the Talmud figuring it out, going through the whole process. It says, the extra vav that's added to that is to add the oldest brother. You have to have a special respect. The younger siblings have to have a respect for their oldest brother. Right? Or sister, obviously. Right? But do you understand that? Why? We can get into the Talmud when we get there. Right? But it's an amazing, just from one letter, we learn, it's a whole nother thing. Right now, next time your brothers mess with you, you can say, ve'et. Right? Ve'et imecha. Right? Okay, so let's get started with our topic. Mark 26:20. Okay. The topic today is going to be happiness. Now, there is nothing in the world that is more sought after than these 8 words known as happiness. You know what? The entire world, there's not a human being in the world who doesn't seek pleasure. Even those who are sadists and masochists and people who do terrible things, they do it because that gives them pleasure. So after all, everyone is seeking pleasure. What is the greatest form of pleasure? Happiness. Oh, but I disagree with the Declaration of Independence, with that point of it. Because pursuit of happiness isn't happiness. That means you're running after it. It's someplace beyond you. No, it's not beyond you. You have the ability within you, right? So we'll talk about it. I'm going to get, it's in my notes. Don't worry, we got it covered. All right? So if you look in the Torah, I probably should cut it. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, but it doesn't guarantee us happiness. It guarantees us our rights to get happiness.
Okay.
So it considered happiness one of those inalienable rights from God. But it doesn't come without your participation.
So I have over here the U.S. Declaration of Independence. I would do it differently. How about life, liberty, and happiness?
How can the government guarantee happiness?
We can't guarantee you life. We can't guarantee you liberty. We could guarantee what? Oh, very good, very.
You have to participate in getting happiness. It can't be given to you. Here's money, son. Here's a boat, son. Here's a travel, son. Are you happy? No, Dad, I'm not happy.
Right.
I want to be a painter in poverty.
Right.
Go pursue that which you think will make you happy. I can't give it to you.
Well,
no government can
give it to you. Life and liberty they can't either give you.
No, but they can prevent other people from taking it away from you.
Okay, so
that's what the laws are.
so,
the laws of the land are to make sure that nobody else takes your life.
Okay, so let's
nobody else can take
so we'll get there. We'll get there in due course. We'll get there in due course. I appreciate it. We'll talk after. Okay. Happiness is a state of mind.
Yes.
Okay? Happiness is a state of mind. And happiness is a means to an end, meaning, okay, it's internal. It's not external. You can buy anything in the world, it won't make you happy. Right? It won't make you happy. Right? You can wear anything in the world, it won't make you happy. Right? You can have the watch, you can have the clothes, you can have the jewelry, you can have the house, you can have the vacation home, you can have the cruises, you can have everything in the world. It doesn't guarantee you happiness. All right? Happiness is within. It's not coming from outside of you. Happiness is a tool for life. It's a tool for life. So let's understand. So what does happiness come from? We spoke previously, and this is why we go from appreciation and gratitude to happiness. Because the first key to happiness is appreciation. If a person does not appreciate what they have, they will not be happy. It is impossible for someone to take life for granted and be happy. If you don't stop and enjoy your coffee, you're depriving yourself from an opportunity to be happy. Yeah, I like my coffee. Yeah, but did you stop to enjoy it? Did you stop to smell the coffee? Ah, thank you. Thank you for giving me this coffee. You know what? There are many people in this world who would love to have a coffee, but don't. And I do. Thank you. Right? You have a roof above your head. You have a comfortable bed to sleep in with a pillow and a blanket. Guess what? Not everyone has that privilege. So the first step to happiness is starting to be thankful, to be appreciative of what we have, appreciating the bounty you do have over the deficiencies we are lacking. Everybody here has things that they can be thankful for, that we can be thankful for. And we also don't have things that we wish we had. Right? We look at someone else and we're like, oh, if only I had children like that. If only I had parents like that. If only I had a spouse like that. If only I had friends like that. If only I had a car like that. If only I had a... It's like, we're busy looking at what other people have. Stop. Right? If we just cared about what we had and appreciated what we have, we would be the happiest people on earth. The happiest people on earth. Number 2 for happiness is controlling our desires. We're going to explain each of these. Okay, controlling our desires. Now, a person who doesn't control their desires is never happy because they're never pleased with what they have. So they're constantly running after the next thing, after the next thing. They don't stop. By the way, it's a very interesting thing. You know, the Talmud says, the Mishnah says a very interesting thing. The Mishnah says, Yesh lo mana rotza masayim. Someone who has 100 wants 200. They have 200, they want 400. Right? It's the thirst for money, the thirst for objects never stops. You say, you know what? When I get my 30-inch screen TV, I'll be happy. Remember when people once said that? Yeah. And then it went, well, you know what? When I have a 40-inch screen, then I'll be happy. When I have a 50-inch screen, I'll be happy. When I have a 60-inch screen, I'll be happy. When I have, right, it doesn't stop, right? And when I get HD, then I'll be happy, right? When I get fast internet, and then we see that we get it and we're not happy. So, meaning running after our temptations and desires constantly is never going to please us. It's like this Energizer bunny constantly running, telling us we want more, we want more, we want more, we want more, and we're never going to be satiated from it. Okay. The third key to happiness is not looking at what others have. The minute we stop looking at what other people have, we're beginning to be happy. Just don't look. Now, I've told you about this friend of mine when I was back in another state. It's about 22 years ago. They had this big picture window at the front of their house. You know what a picture window is? It's that you can just look outside. It's like a big picture if you see of what's going on outside. I said, but why would you have that? They're like, what do you mean? We can see our neighbors and we can see our friends and we can see people walking and we can see people talking. And I realized that many people sit in front of those windows and look at, what, they got a new car? Is that, what, 1 second. Is that new shoes? Right? Is she walking around with new shoes again? New boots? New this? New that? And instead of it being just something to like, it's a great idea. I think a terrible concept, right? Terrible concept that we should be looking at what other people have. You know, my parents, we grew up in a very modest home. And whether my father had a lot of money or a little money, you didn't know. Because life didn't change. I remember one of our neighbors came and they said, you know, I think it's time to paint the outside of the house a little. My father says, We love our house. If you don't like the way it looks, you're welcome to paint it. You know? But what we see in our house, we love. I remember to me, I was young. I was probably 10 or 12 years old. It was, I don't care what the neighbor has. My father said, when we look at your house, we see a beautiful house. I don't know what your problem is. Like, it's like we see a beautiful house. If you don't like the house you see, then you can change it. It's like you can change your view. But it wasn't kicking them out of the neighborhood at all. But we love our neighbors, by the way. We're very, very close with them. But the idea is that sometimes people look at what other people have, and it doesn't give us satisfaction. There's no good that comes out of it, by the way. There's only jealousy. It's only a feeling of like, you know what? Maybe I have to get a better job so I can earn more money, so I can have what they have, so I can be part of the club that they're part of, so I can be part of the society that they go to, and be, part of. Looking at what other people have doesn't bring us happiness, ever. Okay? Now, there's one exception to that. There's one exception. That every type of jealousy is bad, except for the jealousy of spirituality. If you're jealous of someone else's good deeds, of someone else's learning, that's a good thing. You know that there's no antitrust laws with Torah institutions. You know that? I can open up a synagogue right next door, and you can take me to any court in the world, and they'll say, so, let the best man win. Right? Now people have another place to pray in. I can open up a school, a Torah school, a yeshiva, right next door to your yeshiva. Right next door. You know why? Because if there's more opportunities to learn, who benefits? The Jewish people benefit. So I'm going to make a better school. You're going to make an even better school. And they will make an even better school. And they will make an even better school. Who's benefiting? The students. It's a great thing. That there'll be more study, that's an excellent thing. So there's never there's never antitrust laws when it comes to Torah. Now, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be a mensch. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't, yes.
I thought there was a whole discussion in Talmud about who has the right to write a religious book to make sure that we have institutions that don't go broke, making it. Wasn't there a debate between the rabbis as to, well, this new guy wants to put out a version of Or Chaim or whatever,
There's copyright laws. There are copyright laws, and if someone has the rights of printing something, right, you can't just say, well, I'm just going to print another copy of it, and I'll eat away at his. The Chafetz Chaim. You want to hear what a great man is?
There's no copyrights on any of the religious stuff we have. These things have expired 1,000 years ago.
Right, the Chafetz Chaim. But well, certain things don't. Even books. You can't just take a Tom Clancy book and start making copies and printing it.
Stuff.
Okay, so let me tell you, the Chafetz Chaim wrote his great work. Chafetz Chaim passed away in 1934. He wrote 22 books in his life, and one of the books is the most popular, which is called the Mishnah Berurah. It's also a book of Jewish law, practical application for every day. And the Chafetz Chaim wrote in there's no copyright on the book, but there's one condition. Sorry, two conditions. Two conditions. Number one is that you're not allowed to change the design of the page. Means you have to keep it the same format. And the second is you have to give a quarter of your printings out for free. Anybody who wants, you can go today and take the book of Chafetz Chaim, make copies and sell it, no problem. But 25% of the copies that you print need to be given out for free. That's his condition. Anybody who wants, anybody here, you can open up a printing press and start printing Mishnah Berurahs, right? No problem, it's free. But you have to, that's his precondition. You know why? He says the more Mishnah Berurahs we have, the better off it is for the Jewish people. Right? He wasn't selfish about it. Then he used to go, when he was alive, he would go from city to city selling his books. Right? That's how he supported himself at his later years. Right? He'd go sell his books. But he had no problem if anybody else printed them and sold them also. Right? That's a great man. It's like, I'm not going to keep it for myself. This is to help inspire the Jewish people. Okay, so that's something else. But the idea of not looking at what others have. So we have to understand something. Our bodies are temporary. Our souls are eternal. So my son is very, very sweet this morning. As I was getting dressed, so every morning, every evening, I weigh myself in this diet that I'm in and doing my exercise. And I ran last night my 4.1 miles. Trying to keep up to my training. And my son says to me, he says, Abba, if you're the only Jew running the marathon, you could win. I said, why? He says, because you could daven, you can pray, and Hashem will listen to you. But if everybody else is, it's very... I said, but guess where I'm running the marathon? In Jerusalem. Who do you think, right? You think I'm the only Jew running, right? But the idea is so, our souls are eternal. Our soul comes into this body. It lives this life, 120 years, and then the soul lives on. The body gets put in the earth, and we're over. Right? And I was explaining to the same son yesterday. I said, you have to understand that your body is not going to live here forever. The body's not going to be here forever. The soul will. Right? The soul lives on forever. Why is this important? Right? Why is this important? It's important because if we want to understand happiness, we have to look bigger than just today. We have to look at a big picture, zoom out, and stop looking at the micro. Start looking at the macro. Start looking at the big picture of life. There are many people in the entire world who can look at a camera looking into this room and be jealous that they don't have the opportunity to study Torah. That they don't have an opportunity to sit in a room with lights, with air conditioning, who can be in a secure facility, who can live in the United States, who can be sipping on Starbucks coffee. They don't have those opportunities, and we do. But the problem is we're looking in a micro into where our little problems that we have, and we're not looking at a macro. We're not looking on, if you were to ask someone, so what are you? Well, so I'm me. I'm me. This is me. Most people point to themselves, right? You're a soul. That's the right answer. The right answer is I'm a soul, because your body is temporary. If you look at most challenges that people face, is because they're too absorbed in the body, not in the soul. The minute we're able to live in a higher existence, in a higher realm of existence of, I'm not just a temporary body, but I'm an eternal soul. I sat with my grandmother of blessed memory. She passed away a little bit more than a year ago. So I asked my grandmother, I had, one of my trips to Israel, I had 2 hours to just sit with my grandmother and schmooze. So I said, tell me, what was the atmosphere in your house? What was that atmosphere in your house? She grew up in a house, and those of you who saw my Facebook post, her youngest brother, who was the only male survivor from her family, passed away last week. And her, so it's very sad. It's like the end of an era. It's like that whole generation of survivors are all gone. So I asked her, what was the environment like in her house? And she says there was no pettiness. There was no arguments about small things. Sometimes you hear children fighting about, it's my brush, it's your brush, it's my this, it's my that. It's like they were so above that, right? Because they realized, there was a whole school of thought where she grew up in. Her father was teaching this in his yeshiva, of how great a man is. Mankind, we are so great. We're capable of such incredible things. And sometimes we make ourselves so small. We become so petty. We become so, right? We don't think big. We can be so great. We can do such incredible things. But we sometimes sell ourselves cheap, and we become like, it's like we become petty. That's because we're too focused on our bodies that are temporary instead of our souls that are eternal, right? Happiness cannot be confused with laughter or comedy, okay? Oh, you want to be happy? Late night shows are not your solution, Okay, that's not. And reading Reader's Digest is not either going to make you happy, right? It can make you laugh. It can make you overcome some of your challenges, right? There's a place for comedy. There's a place for laughter, but don't confuse laughter and comedy with happiness. Yes.
There's a great book by Dennis Prager, who's an Orthodox Jew, and it's called Happiness is a Serious Problem. And it's really a great book, and one of the things that he mentions is, joy, like that's moments of joy and pleasure is not happiness, so you can't confuse that. And all the other points that Rabbi's made, it's really a fantastic book.
Does he still have the happiness hour?
Yes, every week he has a
Every
happiness
Friday.
hour. He's
Right. So every person in the world can have a happiness minute every day of his life, if we just stopped and appreciated what we had. Not right, because the minute you start looking at what you don't have, you look at what the other person has. You look at. We'll be done in a minute. Right. The minute we start looking outside, not inside, that's when we're unhappy. That's where we're limited. All right. So we took some time to explain the Siyum HaShas, the completion of the Talmud. And we just started now with happiness. Next week we'll continue. We'll dive right in at 11 o'clock next week. Okay? If you come here at 10 o'clock, I won't be able to help you. Right? But if you come here at 11 o'clock, I'll be very happy to see all y'all. Yes. I heard about that, yes. Yeah. If you did not sign in, please sign in. And if you did not put your email on this sheet previously, please do so we can contact you. All right?